Fishful Thinker Television, brought to you by Sportsman's Warehouse, the great indoors for those who love the great outdoors. Toyota Trucks, moving forward. Hewlett-Packard, Vent. St. Croix Rods, handcrafting fishing rods for over 60 years.
First light here in Quincy, first thing in the, he come off. Well, that seems like as good a place as any to start it. Good morning, we're on Quincy Reservoir this morning, here in basically downtown Aurora, Colorado. We've got Troy Coburn here. Good morning, Troy.
Good morning, Chad.
Troy Coburn knows this lake like most people know their bathtub, and it's first light here. It's the last day of August in Colorado, and we're gonna see if we can catch some big old largemouth. We're going to be throwing big giant baits today. This thing and a big giant jig like this, maybe some 10-inch worms. We're going to get the big baits out. Got the big rods, got the goat rope. We're going to get after it today. Should be a fun show, so hang in there. Brand new Berkeley Gripper Jig. It's a nice heavy football head with a recessed eye. You can see I've got a power bait trailer on it for a little extra flavor. Good color. We've got some off-color water, so I got a peanut butter and jelly color with a dark blue and black trailer on it. Looks just like the crayfish they're eating. 17-pound trilene fluorocarbon, 7-foot medium heavy spinning or bait casting St. Croix, and the big Shimano Corrado. You know, one of the things when you're out on a reservoir like this in late summer, or a pond, or any place that's got largemouth or smallmouth bass in it at this time of year being the very end of August, we're almost to that fall transition season, and a lot of times a big bait can be a really good deal when you get this time of year, and the reason being the water's very near its peak warmth. It might have peaked out a couple of weeks ago, but it's very close to its peak warmth, which basically means to a fisherman that their metabolism is a lot faster. So, you know, you could get away with throwing a great big bait where a lot of the year you couldn't get away with throwing that bait. This time of year it can be very effective to get those fish to actually move and pick your bait up. We're throwing a huge jig. This is a great big jig. By Western standards, this is a big jig. But I'm looking for a big fish, and you know, like I always joke about, they're named for the size of their mouth, not the size of their brain. So we're going to give them a big bite, and hopefully we can get some fish to pick it up. There's fish right here. There's fish, Tim. Got him. All right, first thing in the morning, I got a solid hook set on that one, it felt like, and we got a big old largemouth right here, and we're going to keep him down. I got him on 17 pound, and first thing in the morning here in Quincy, and oh, what a fish. We got a beautiful largemouth right here, and our boy Troy here has put us on him right off the bat. It's first light, and last day of August, and got a real pretty one here, and let's see if we can get a hold of him gracefully. And got him. He's gonna try to get off. How about that one to start the morning off? Beautiful morning. You know why you have fish like this in Quincy Reservoir? First of all, let me get this big old gripper jig out of his face. Big giant crawfish bait like that, perfect for catching one like that. Mr. Coburn put us on a good spot first thing this morning. Fish like this is a testament to catch and release right here. This is a testament to active management, catch and release. We're going to talk about it all day. Hopefully we're going to catch them like this all day, or bigger. That's a good start. We'll kiss that one for good luck. Watch this fish. He'll probably jump when I let him go right here. Real gentle, see if he'll come back up. Nope, straight back to the bottom. But at any rate, it's a good start to the morning. Quincy Reservoir, right downtown Aurora, Colorado, 168 acres. It's a public water supply lake. It's very actively and aggressively managed. The rules are enforced, and that's what you get for it. So let's see if we can get another one.
Fish.
Whew.
Typically this lake, because it is fed by mountain water, is gin clear. And then probably about July, beginning of July, we start getting a pretty heavy algae bloom in this lake. This lake is in the middle of a bunch of neighborhoods.
Yep.
And so eventually some of those nitrates make it into the water, and that's what causes the algae bloom. So when the algae bloom occurs, that's when we can go to the heavier line, the heavier baits, because the water gets dirty.
Sure.
Now, the baits we're throwing,
You can get mine in here as well.
okay, you'll see a bigger profile, okay, has rattles in it, okay, and then Chad's bait, big worm.
Great big worm, big
Okay.
old baits for big old bites.
The reason I like to fish these baits in dirty water as opposed to the rest of the year when the water's clear, we fish the smaller finesse type patterns, is the big baits, first of all, they move a lot of water. So you're appealing to the lateral line of the bass, okay?
Which means bass can basically feel that bait moving through the water.
Exactly. Second, it has the rattles, so the bass can hear the bait. And then third, it's got a big profile that moves a lot of water, but it's got a dark color to it, okay? Typically in this lake, I will fish greens and browns. When the water gets dirty, I'll go to white spinner baits, black buzz baits, chartreuse spinner baits, or black
Heavy
jigs, because it contrasts that water color.
Right.
So the fish can see it, they can hear it, and they can feel it. And in dirty water, that's very important.
You got a deep one. Oh, that's a nice one too. Holy cow, look at that one. You want me to lip him for you over here?
I got it.
You got a handle on him?
Yeah, you keep fishing if you want to take the
Yeah,
motor.
I'll take the motor over here. That's a beautiful one there. Now that jig's starting to, or continuing to produce, I should say. And happy to see that one. That's a pretty one there. Troy can get him in the boat.
He's
Now,
a skinny.
he is a skinny
Holy
one.
smokes.
Are you picking on the skinny ones?
I'm trying.
What's up with that? It's a nice fish though. Now you pop that jig out here. Are you gonna kiss him? Ah.
When do I need gulp and when do I need a power bait? The question comes down to how aggressive are my fish. If my fish are really pressured and really inactive, or if there's a really finesse bite or an unweighted bite where I really need the fish to hold on to it, I'm gonna use the gulp bait. If the fish are feeding more aggressively, if the conditions are such that I don't feel like they're getting a lot of pressure or things like that, then I'm going to use a power bait product. The power bait's a little bit more efficient. You can leave it on a hook as you run around the lake in your boat. Doesn't dry out, things like that. Doesn't have as much strength and flavor as the gulp does though. The gulp's the way to go. If you really got to get a bite or you really got to get a fish to hold it, gulp's the product for you.
Right on the edge of that
Got a
weed
nice
line.
fish right on the outside edge of that weed line, just like all the others have been. He's not giant, but we're definitely happy to have him so far this morning here. Ate that same jigging pig. They seem to like that Berkeley Gripper Jig, no problem. We're gonna get him down. Stay down, baby. We'll see if we can get a hold of this one in the sun here. Come on over here, buddy. Come on over here. All right, now there we go. Now he ate that jig. You can look, he got that jig down in there. Got him buried up in the top of the mouth. Should come right out. Got a good hook set on him. No problem. Another beautiful largemouth little ding on him there. But you know, these fish are a major testament to the catch and release. We're right in town. This lake gets pounded. There's a lot of people that fish here. If you let these fish go, it's got an 18-inch limit. Is that right,
18
Troy?
inch,
18-inch limit. So this fish is nowhere close to a keeper fish. We're gonna put him back here real quick since we're talking catch and release. Let him get some air here. We'll watch him just disappear in the morning sun there. Straight back down to where the weed line he came from. But that 18-inch limit on this lake protects these big trophy fish that get in here. Gives the fish to be 3, 4, 5 pounds. Big spawns come off because of that. The bigger females have a capacity to produce more eggs, produce more fish, and then we end up with more fish in the lake overall. If you keep those fish that they're 12, 13, 14 inches long, they don't ever get a chance to be major egg layers. And so that's a major deal. It's not just about the good genetics, it's about the sheer volume of eggs that a big female can lay. So we're putting them all back today. And they seem to be really keyed in on this crayfish. We got the jig going right here. Troy said we'd get them on the jig, and sure enough we are.
Get me a fish.
If you train your worms well, they'll do that. Now you can see I got this tracer braid. You can see those different increments of color on the water there. Those increments are every 2.5 feet, and it gives me a good chance to see any line movement that I might have. I have some contrast. I don't know if you can pick that up here going through our shadows, but it gives me some contrast in the line so that I can see if that line moves in any direction. I can feel for subtle bites with a real good sensitivity, but in the event that I don't feel them, I can see them hopefully with that tracer braid. It's a new Fireline braided line. real soft, real subtle, supple line, and all kinds of hook setting power in it, which I really like. And with this big worm, the fish are going to pick it up. They should hold it pretty good. With the Gulp product, they shouldn't spit it out that quick, but we'll see if we can get one to jump on this worm. We're fishing, it looks like we're fishing wide open water, but actually what we're fishing is the outside of a weed line. You can see the bank behind us here. As the water depth comes off, where the light ceases to hit the bottom of the lake, the weeds stop to grow there, and there's a hard edge where those weeds are, and that's kind of what we're actually trying to fish. Here's a bite right here. Oh, you're kidding me. Did you get bit too? And you broke yours off?
Oh my gosh, that's 2 fish I broke off today. That's crazy. Look at there, he's jumping with my jig in his mouth.
And both of us got bit at the same time. Unbelievable. We both get bit at the same time. He breaks his off and I miss, and then his comes and jumps afterwards. You are a professional, my man. You are a pro.
Yeah, thanks.
Unbelievable. So it looks like that we're fishing out here in the middle of the wide open lake, and you can see the banks, 75, 80 yards behind us, and most people associate bass fishing as a bank-oriented deal. And I should say most amateurs associate bank fishing as bass fishing on the banks. The reality of the situation is a lot of the time, particularly during the summer months and the winter months, the bass will relate to the deepest water in the lake. In this case, what we're actually fishing out here is submerged weed beds that are well out off the bank, and we're trying to find the edges of those weeds, and where the edges of those weeds touch to deep water or transect a deep water area is where we get our bites. And so what we're doing, it looks to be out in the middle of the lake, but we're not just making blind casts. We know there's a hard weed edge out here, and that edge, the weeds will grow, and then they'll just stop growing and give you a hard sand bottom there, and that's where the fish are, is on the edge of that weeds. That's how we've been able to catch the fish we have caught. I expect with the sun coming out and the wind slicking off like we've seen here in the last hour or so, that the fish will probably get tighter and tighter to those weeds, or maybe in those weeds all the way around, just bury up in there and get out of the sun. Or they may pull off into a little bit deeper water. But bottom line is, we're not just randomly fishing out here in the middle of the lake. We're fishing a very distinct spot, or a very distinct type of spot, and that's how we're getting it done. It's deep water bass, and we're fishing anywhere from say 10 to 20 feet deep, 25 feet in some cases we fish, so that's the key. All right, now how we found these weed lines out here and how we know where they're at is we're using some electronics, which we have down here on the floor of the boat, and that's one of the easy ways to find them, is to look for them on your electronics. Another thing we're using is visibly our eyes, our polarized glasses. We can see where the weeds come up just a foot or two below the surface around the boat in a couple of areas, and you can see where they end, and you can kind of extrapolate from there. When you can't see them on the surface anymore, you just keep fishing around. The other thing is we can feel them with the baits. As we drag the baits through, I can feel those weeds. And then if I throw into outside of the weeds into the just sand bottom, I feel that as well. And that's part of the reason this braided line is so good, is I can feel that bottom content and see what I'm dealing with. But if you don't have electronics in your boat, drag a heavy bait around, feel for it to load up in the weeds, and then just keep fishing a little bit deeper until you find where they stop. Kind of get yourself a visual on where that is, and then go from there. All right, so we got one to bite that 10-inch gulp worm. It slipped off on us, and the conditions got to be a little tough, truth be told. And I'm sticking with it, still dragging the big gulp around. And you know, this time of year, a big bait's the way to go. And it's a fairly strong fish. He's not giant, but he's fairly uptight. He bit that gulp. I wasn't sure I had a bite. I had it down in the weeds, and I've been pulling it through a bunch of weeds, and we aren't exactly getting a lot of bites. Yeah, he's barely hooked. We're gonna see if we can get him quick. Oh, look at the belly on him though. Look at how fat. Got a 6/0 superline hook buried in the roof of his mouth. I was worried he was barely hooked, but he is not coming off. When you get a hook stuck like that, he's not coming off. That's a big giant 6/0 hook. We're using the hook. Let me get that turned around there. You can see that's a big hook. Got that sinker pegged right there. And that's because I got a 10-inch worm, which I'll show you in a minute. Another absolute football though. Look at the belly on that. What a fatty. Beautiful largemouth. First thing in the morning. You know, here in the western United States, there's largemouth like this all over the place. They put lots of trout in these lakes. Look at how thick he is across here. Nice, nice fish. We're gonna put him back in the water. Let me slide the St. Croix out of the way, see if he'll cooperate with us. Beautiful fish, gotta love that. See if he'll swim off gracefully here. Look at that. Straight back down to the weed bed he came out of. Good stuff. You know, we're having to stick with it. Like I said, we had a front blew through and it slicked off and got sunny. We're gonna stick with it, keep throwing the big baits, and I bet we can get some more big bass. You know, a lot of people in the western United States where bass fishing isn't really anywhere near as popular or common as it is in the east or the south, have more comfort level with a spinning rod as opposed to some of the bait casting gear we've been throwing earlier in the day. One of the things that's helped make spinning gear infinitely more versatile than it used to be is the advent of braided lines. This is Spiderwire Ultracast on here, and it's 20-pound test. I have zero problems throwing 20-pound test even on this little small Shimano like this because it's so supple and so thin. Traditionally, 20-pound type line would have been reserved for bait casting gear because it was monofilament, it was very heavy and stiff and hard to throw. The braided lines like this, very supple and very easy to throw, works great on a spinning reel. I've got a 6.5-foot medium heavy rod. This is a heavy, stout rod. I saltwater fish with this kind of thing. This is a big old swim bait on here. I mean, this isn't exactly guppy tackle that we're fishing with, not your traditional trout tackle, but this spinning rod's got plenty of power. I can throw this heavy bait with it. I got plenty of line strength right here. There's no reason why a guy can't use spinning tackle to throw anything available for bass fishing these days, whether it be a spinner bait or a buzz bait or anything else. Get yourself a spinning rod with a lot of backbone to it and get yourself some braided line, and you can make your spinning equipment handle any kind of heavy baits, heavy tackle. I can pitch with it just like a guy would pitch in a bass circuit with it. I can pitch with it, no problem. Definitely more versatile than most people realize. Modern spinning tackle, definitely a good opportunity for folks that don't want to learn to throw the casting gear. Throwing the big bait up around the shallow cover like this, you never know, but again, we've been talking about it all day. If you come up on a some shallow cover like this at any kind of time of year that there's any reasonable chance of fish being shallow, it's worth fishing for. Now, we have not fished the shallow cover much today, but it's such a good high percentage spot. We're here on a main lake point. We've got good cover on it right here. You gotta try it. It doesn't matter if you're fishing in a gravel quarry or you're fishing in a giant lake or you're in a cove in the back of Lake Powell. If you find isolated cover like that on a major point, it's worth fishing. And I would go along and make multiple casts. I'm pitching from a ways back here, trying to get real close to each piece of cover. And I'm fishing from a ways back because it's shallow and I don't want to spook the fish. So we'll stay back here off the cover that we're trying to fish, make some long throws, and hope to get some of them to bite. We got a real nice looking brush pile in front of us here. It's adjacent to deep water. We got the dam right behind us. You can see a few stick ups. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. We'll see if we can pan over there in a minute. But there's a big old brush pile right here. It's got good potential to have a fish in it. It's got immediate access to deep water. We'll spend some time plumbing that thing with a couple of different baits to make sure nobody's home. Hopefully we'll get one to pick up one of the big baits here. In this case, I would probably focus on the deepest side more than anything else. There's a whole slew of stumps around there, so I'm not focusing on just the visible ones. And what we're doing is maybe focus a little bit on the deep side, because most of our fish that we've caught have been off on the deeper side of the weed lines. We're going to anticipate that they'll do the same thing here, and that's another pattern. You know, we talk about pattern fishing all the time here on Fishful Thinker. Pattern, of course, being a set of circumstances that you can recognize and therefore duplicate, whether that be water depth, water temperature, cloud conditions, bait presentation, speed of your bait, size of your bait, any variable that you can pin down that the fish seem to want is something you should concentrate on. And if you understand those variables, then you can duplicate your pattern and catch more fish. Now, you notice as soon as I get my bait out away from that cover, I go ahead and reel it up. The chances of me being bit on an open mud bank out here are pretty slim when you're talking about catching bass anyway. So as soon as my bait is no longer in the strike zone, I pull it out of there and throw it again. All right, got one hooked up in the brush pile here. Troy's got one going on, and I don't think Troy's got a mic on right now, and he's got a hog hooked up, it looks like. We get this other bait in the boat here so we can get ready to help Troy out here. And what you got there, buddy? Oh, he got a beautiful largemouth. Excuse me, I'm gonna sneak under here. He's got a real nice largemouth in the boat, or coming to the boat here. Oh, that's a beauty. I got him right here. I got it right. Oh my God, I can't reach him. Come here, fish, got him. Oh, we got him. Mr. Coburn, that was very well done. We don't have a mic on him right now because we're not paying as good of attention as we should. But he's stuck with that jig. We were just talking about the fast bait versus the slow bait. The jig is what worked all day. He got a beautiful fish. Look at this thing. Not bad. You want to kiss him?
No, that's okay.
He said earlier that he'd kiss the girls. That's obviously a nice one there. Big old bucket mouth on that thing. Gotta love him. He is a testament to catch and release for sure. And I tell you what, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. That fish is probably barely a keeper in this lake, if that.
Right.
And
right.
That's why there's so many of them in here, is they get a chance to grow. May I put him back, sir?
Have at it.
All right, we're gonna put this fish right back here. It's a beautiful fish. Look at that, got a little sore on him right there. Look at that fish, if I don't fall out of the boat here. Been watching too many Bill Dance videos. But I'll tell you what, folks, we've had a rough outing today. It was not the outing that we thought maybe we'd have. We've had a bit of a rough outing today, but we got it done. We've caught quite a few fish. We caught most of them early, and then the sun came out and the wind slacked off and it got a lot harder, but we did catch the fish we needed to catch. We caught them in ways that we thought we would, dragging big jigs around, big baits around. If you're fishing in late summer months where you live, keep in mind that fish are looking for a big bite a lot of the time this time of year. So keep that in mind. It'll help you catch some more fish. Troy, thanks very much for having us on your pond here.
My pleasure.
Folks, there's ponds like this all over the West United States. It's 160 acres. Yeah, we got the fancy shirts, but we aren't in the fancy boat. We're out having a good time doing some old school bass fishing in the West United States. Get out and get her done. Thanks for watching Fishful Tinker. Yeah, 2 seasoned professionals with 2 jigs hung in the pipe at the same time. Gotta love that.
Broke me off.
You're kidding me.
He short lined me.
Yeah. Oh, I waited too long. I waited too long. All right, let me get it back in there real quick just in case. There was nobody home.